16 years after the death of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, Rome is ruled by corrupt twin emperors, Geta and Caracalla. Aurelius' dream of a perfect Rome has crumbled, and the twins' aggressive actions are slowly bringing the empire to its knees. The fall of Rome now seems inevitable. In the North African kingdom of Numidia, Hanno lives a peaceful life with his wife, Arishat. However, their tranquility is shattered when sirens announce a Roman invasion. As smoke rises from the city, Hanno and Arishat put on their armor and join the other citizens to hear their leader, Jugurtha, lay out a defense plan. Before heading into battle, Hanno and Arishat exchange rings and promise to protect each other. The couple joins the defenders at the city wall. Hanno gives an inspiring speech, and soon, Roman ships, led by General Acacius, appear on the horizon. The Numidians open fire with their catapults and bows, causing heavy damage to the ships. But Acacius orders his men to push forward, retaliating with their own archers and catapults. A brutal battle ensues, with fire spreading on both sides, and many soldiers dying in minutes. As the Roman ships reach the fortress, Acacius leads his men into the fray, slaying soldiers with ruthless precision. Hanno fights just as fiercely, cutting down Romans with impressive speed. As the Romans storm the fortress, using their shields to protect themselves, Arishat shoots arrows from above, covering the sword fighters. When Acacius notices her, he orders his archers to target her, and she is struck by an arrow. Hanno watches in horror as her body falls into the sea. A Roman soldier then strikes Hanno from behind, knocking him unconscious. While unconscious, Hanno sees the mythical ferryman guide Arishat's spirit into the afterlife. He desperately runs after her, screaming her name, but then his own body resurfaces, and he wakes up. He finds Arishat's lifeless body nearby, and after crying, he removes the arrow from her chest. The Romans capture him shortly after. Acacius claims the city for Rome, and his men burn the bodies of the fallen. All the surviving citizens, including Hanno, are branded with burning marks, marking them as slaves. They are then transported to Rome by ship. On the journey, Hanno notices that Jugurtha has a serious wound and helps him tend to it. Jugurtha believes he won't survive much longer, and recalls the day he found Hanno as a lost child in the desert. This triggers a memory in Hanno's mind of his own childhood. He was once living with a kind family, but his mother sent him away when Romans attacked their home. When the ships arrive at Ostia, the port of Rome, Acacius is celebrated as a hero, and the twin emperors crown him with laurels. He requests a break from war to spend time with his wife, but the twins announce their next conquests: Persia and India. The slaves are sent to Antium, on the outskirts of Rome, where Macrinus oversees gladiator training. Jugurtha, Hanno, and other slaves are released into an arena where they must fight feral baboons. Hidden soldiers shoot darts at the baboons to make them more aggressive. The creatures leap at the slaves, attacking with their claws and teeth. Jugurtha refuses to fight and kneels, awaiting death. Hanno tries to save him, but it's too late. Jugurtha dies. When a baboon attacks Hanno, he stops it by shoving his chains into its mouth and biting its leg. He then chokes the baboon to death, impressing Macrinus, who decides to buy him. Hanno and his fellow slaves are taken to the barracks, where they are mocked by the other slaves, who make baboon noises at him. After being fed, the slaves are brought to Macrinus, who judges the new recruits. Hanno refuses to speak, so Macrinus orders the gladiator trainer Vigo to fight him. At first, Hanno seems at a disadvantage, but he quickly recovers and defeats Vigo with impressive skill. Macrinus then takes Hanno to his private chambers, explaining that he chooses gladiators for their rage, and Hanno has plenty of it. Hanno finally speaks, revealing that his goal is to kill Acacius. Macrinus tells him that he can achieve that if he wins enough fights in Rome. Meanwhile, Acacius reunites with his wife, Lucilla, the daughter of the previous emperor. He admits he's tired of the twins' tyrannical rule, and together, they begin plotting a rebellion to restore Rome to its former glory. A few days later, Macrinus takes Hanno to a party hosted by Senator Thryax. At the party, Hanno is forced to fight one of Thryax's slaves to the death in front of the emperors. Hanno initially refuses to kill, using furniture and objects to defend himself. But when the other man refuses to surrender, Hanno is forced to stab him with a sword. Geta is impressed and asks Hanno where he's from, but Hanno answers with a quote from Virgil's Aeneid about hell. Fortunately, the emperors find his response amusing and look forward to seeing more of Hanno in the arena. After the party, Macrinus scolds Hanno for his boldness in front of the emperors, questioning where he learned such words. Hanno explains that he picked up stories from a Roman prisoner, though Macrinus doesn't believe him. To Hanno's shock, he is given 2 coins for his fight, and he learns that gladiators can save money to buy their freedom. Later that night, Lucilla and Acacius meet with a group of senators to discuss their plans to save Rome. Acacius reveals that the Roman army is loyal to him, and the senators agree to support his cause. A few days later, Hanno and the other slaves are brought to Rome for the Gladiator games at the Colosseum. They are awed by the grandeur of the architecture and statues, but are also struck by the sight of the poor on the streets. Macrinus meets with Thraex, and they agree to double their bets. At the Colosseum, the emperors receive Acacius and Lucilla in the front seats as the crowd chants Acacius's name. After Acacius speaks, the slaves enter the arena, and gladiator champion Glycio appears, riding a rhino. Hanno takes charge and devises a strategy to avoid the rhino's attacks. The plan works at first, but soon a slave is injured, slowing him down. Glycio captures him with bolas, and the rhino kills him. Hanno throws dirt through his hands, which reminds Lucilla of her former lover Maximus, the hero of the first film. Hanno throws more dirt at the rhino, creating a distraction. He jumps out of the way, causing the rhino to crash into the wall. Glycio falls off and attacks Hanno, and the two engage in a brutal fight. As they struggle, Gaeta recalls the quote Hanno shared at the party, and Lucilla sees it as another clue. Hanno and Glycio continue fighting, using any weapon they can find. When Glycio knocks Hanno down, Caracalla calls for blood, but Lucilla asks for mercy. Gaeta signals for Hanno to be spared. Hanno refuses pity, and the fight continues. In the end, Hanno stabs Glycio and decapitates him with 2 swords. The crowd and even the other slaves chant Hanno's name. In the gladiators' quarters, Dr. Ravi tends to Hanno's wounds. After the fight, Lucilla reflects in her private quarters, piecing together the clues she's observed. The quote, the dirt-throwing move, and Hanno's demeanor all point to the fact that Hanno is her son, Lucius, the legitimate heir to the throne. Lucilla remembers sending Lucius away as a child, to protect him from those who wanted to kill him for power. She cries as she realizes that her son has returned. Lucilla invites Macrinus to share a meal, trying to act casual as she asks about his slaves. Macrinus, sensing something is off, begins to investigate. He learns that Lucilla once had a son who disappeared, and rumors suggest that her late husband was not the boy's biological father. This information leads Macrinus to piece together the truth. Later, Lucilla secretly meets with a senator friend, who helps her sneak into the gladiators' cells. Hanno admits he remembers Lucilla and his true name, but insists that Lucius is dead, leaving only Hanno behind. When Lucilla tries to explain herself, Hanno angrily shouts at her and forces her to leave. Back home, Lucilla tells Acacius that her son is alive and begs for his help, unaware that a maid overhears their conversation. The next morning, Hanno is training with the other slaves, but Vigo, still bitter, dismisses the group, leaving Hanno to handle the rowing mechanism alone. By the end of the day, Hanno's hands are raw, and Ravi tends to them while sharing his own story. Ravi reveals that he is a free man who chose to stay in Rome after meeting a woman and starting a new life. For the next gladiator fight, the arena is transformed into a water-filled battleground, with sharks swimming beneath the surface. The opponents launch flaming arrows, and fallen men become prey for the sharks. Hanno commands his team to keep rowing until they're close enough to destroy the enemy's oars. Despite the flying arrows and losses, Hanno's ship rams into the enemy vessel, splitting it in 2. Hanno and his men board the enemy ship, killing their foes one by one. Bodies fall into the water as the broken ship drifts toward the main seats. Seizing an opportunity, Hanno grabs a crossbow and aims at Acacius, but a fighter knocks him off balance, causing the arrow to land between the twin emperors. They interpret this as a personal attack. After the fight, the slaves chant Hanno's name. When Vigo reprimands him for the crossbow stunt, Hanno warns Vigo he should be grateful the arrow wasn't meant for him. The following day, Ravi shows Hanno a shrine to gladiator champions. Hanno notices Maximus's name has been scratched off, though his armor and swords remain in pristine condition. On the wall, Hanno reads the words, "What we do in this life echoes in eternity." In the next fight, extra soldiers guard the main seats, and Lucilla is shackled. Acacius is forced to battle the Praetorian Guard. Though wounded multiple times, he skillfully defeats every soldier. Next, Hanno enters the arena to fight Acacius. The crowd is divided as the 2 skilled warriors battle fiercely. When Acacius grows tired, he reveals he knows Hanno's true identity and surrenders, explaining his love for Lucilla and loyalty to Maximus. Moved, Hanno drops his sword as well. Furious, the emperors order archers to execute Acacius. As Acacius dies, Hanno questions the crowd, asking if this is how Rome treats its heroes. The audience begins to boo the emperors, forcing the guards to hold back the angry mob while the twins flee the Colosseum. That evening, Macrinus confronts Hanno, questioning why he spared Acacius. Hanno expresses his belief in building a better Rome, but Macrinus dismisses this as a foolish dream, reminding Hanno of his role as a mere tool. Meanwhile, Citizens riot in the streets, demanding the twins' downfall. Soldiers struggle to control the chaos, but the crowd overpowers them. In the palace, the twins argue. Caracalla blames Geta for their troubles and attacks him, but Geta stops him, professing his love. Macrinus manipulates Caracalla into killing his brother, guiding his hand to fatally stab Geta. The next morning, Lucilla visits Hanno and gives him Maximus's ring. They reconcile with a hug, sharing condolences. Caracalla ascends the throne, declaring his monkey as first consul and Macrinus as second. Macrinus presents Geta's severed head to the senators, gaining their approval to lead the Praetorian Guard. Later, Macrinus visits Lucilla, revealing he was once her father's slave, and now intends to end the imperial bloodline by becoming emperor himself. Hanno entrusts Maximus's ring to Ravi, instructing him to deliver it to Acacius's army in Ostia. Ravi agrees and hands Hanno the cell keys before departing. As Ravi sneaks past guards to reach the general, the ring convinces the army to support Lucius, the rightful heir to Rome. Back at the Colosseum, Vigo announces Hanno's final fight, showcasing the wooden sword of freedom. Hanno escapes his cell, overpowers Vigo, and kills him with the wooden sword. Other slaves join the rebellion, killing guards and opening paths. Hanno retrieves his father's armor and sword, vowing to avenge Arishat's death. He inspires the slaves with a powerful speech before entering the arena, where Lucilla is tied to a post surrounded by rebel senators. As the crowd cheers for Hanno, soldiers attack, but the slaves rush in to even the odds. A fierce battle ensues. Caracalla grows excited by the chaos, but Macrinus orders reinforcements. However, the cavalry is occupied defending the city from Acacius's approaching army. A few soldiers enter the arena, slaughtering both slaves and senators. The crowd, enraged, riots and overpowers the soldiers. Amid the turmoil, Macrinus kills Caracalla by stabbing him in the ear. Hanno attempts to rescue Lucilla, but is too late as Macrinus shoots her with an arrow. With her dying breath, Lucilla encourages Hanno. Macrinus flees to join the army at the gates, but Hanno pursues him. Outside the city, the Praetorian Guard clashes with Acacius's army, now led by Ravi. Hanno confronts Macrinus, revealing his identity as Lucius, the rightful heir. The two engage in a brutal duel. Despite being blinded by dirt and pushed into the river, Hanno finds strength in his mother's final words. Emerging with renewed resolve, he defeats Macrinus, severing his arm and delivering a fatal blow. As Macrinus's body drifts away, Hanno declares his grandfather's vision of a perfect Rome. The soldiers lay down their weapons and unite in support. That night, Hanno returns to the arena, honoring his family by taking Lucilla's blood and gathering dirt in Maximus's memory.